Everybody is wanting to be a Shah Rukh Khan. Everybody is assumed that every day 5,000 people will come to Bombay. Out of 150,000 people a month and 1.5 million people a year, 2 people will become Shah Rukh Khan. And everybody's like, let's play this 2% game. Guru Dronacharya was one of my favorite characters in the Mahabharata because he coached both sides initially and all of them were superstars and they had one guru. And so they could not do without a guru after having such magical feats. And today we feel that we come from a small town and we are like, oh, coaching mein discount milega. It's ridiculous.
The successful B2C startups, which are like Zomato, Swiggy, Amazon, Flipkart, are also not necessarily profitable. And these guys are just sustaining it through investor funds with a hope of making profit in the future.
Then comes entrepreneurship, where there is no structure, no discipline, no community. Most people are leaving their job because they don't like the boss, but there's a discipline, there's structure. We escape that, come into entrepreneurship and we lose our discipline, structure and community, and therefore only 3% startups are successful. Now I understand people are like, what if I get the wrong coach? Firstly, I believe that you should have a micro niche coach, somebody who's done exactly what you want. And secondly, you will make a few mistakes before you find the right girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever in life. So why are people crying? I paid a coach money and it didn't work out, so I'm not going to do. I always say that Sadhguru is such a revered guru. Tomorrow if Sadhguru stops doing yoga, the whole world will stop doing yoga. No, you've learned from him. How you continue.
I want to keep the conversation today around agency, real estate and Bitcoin. So I think these are the 3 topics which we have agreements and disagreements on. All right, Avi, welcome to the Digital Deepak podcast.
Thank you so much.
Avi, it has been almost 7 years since we first met and a lot has changed in these past 7 years.
Pre-COVID.
Yes, pre-COVID, then during COVID, then post-COVID. Now it's like almost post-COVID.
Right.
And I want to keep the conversation today around agency, real estate and Bitcoin. So I think these are the 3 topics which we have agreements and disagreements on.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So I mean, one of the things that I have been saying in the market, or more like an intuitive feeling, is that if you want to make money, you can't really do B2C businesses. And why I am feeling like that is that, first of all, I am in a B2C edtech business myself. And I have seen a lot of e-commerce B2C businesses not able to survive, not got the funding through, and it has been a little bit up and down. More like down nowadays because of the lack of liquidity. And the successful B2C startups, which are like Zomato, Swiggy, Amazon, Flipkart, are also not necessarily profitable. And these guys are just sustaining it through investor funds with a hope of making profit in the future. So if you are trying to start a business, it kind of makes more sense to focus on the B2B and the enterprise, and which is what you have been doing with Internet Moguls as an agency. So what has been your experience of looking at B2C, B2B, and some of your clients being B2B and also B2C?
Yeah.
What is your perception of the market?
Okay, awesome. So I'll answer in the series that you asked. So but before the podcast finishes, I'll also talk about how I also learn from your perspective. Because I think that you're always somewhere 20 years old in your heart and also think like a 50, 60-year-old. So I like that. I don't know how you get that, but maybe I'll ask you how you think with 2 people in mind. For me, I look at life and these challenges. And first it used to irritate me, then frustrate me. Now it pains me to see all these failed startups. Because I think, from my point of view, I see it as a human problem. The thing is that everybody has a certain way they have looked at life. Some people were bullied, some people were, made fun of, some people had bad homes. Everybody goes through some challenges. That's what life is about. When we grow up and we get into entrepreneurship, we are expected to say everything has to be perfect. All those things you brush aside. But the human inside is not able to take the next step. And although we're wearing suits and everything, and but when we go, we're that same scared child inside who's saying, I'm going to be judged. I tell entrepreneurs, I know exactly 10 minutes jao, roke aa jao, because it's fine. But because we're still the same people. And behind closed doors or with our loved ones, we all cry. We all say, nahi ho raha. And sometimes you just take a blanket and you put double black curtains because you don't want to face another day. It takes time to get out. But when your team calls or a Zoom call happens, you're like, hey guys, how are you? I'm trying to help, But from inside you're broken. It's just a 1% battery that you're running on some days. So I believe it's first the human needs that support to be able to fight such a big battle, which is 99% rejection, 1%. Just like selling a credit card on a phone, 99% of people are going to say no. But all these large credit card companies are successful because they hire other people to sell the cards who are getting a fixed salary. Credit card people are not putting themselves in the emotional line. If the owner was to put themselves, when he heard 99 rejections, he would have never built a credit card company like that. So if we are so emotional as human beings, then we can get hurt so easily. We need to be, I think every human being should be in therapy. First, I think, or two things that I believe that the government of India should, and I'm a first firm believer, I never say what can the government do for me. I always say what can I do for the country, especially because we're in a developing country. So we cannot expect the government to do more than what they're already doing. However, these two things I always feel, just like you've given us a GST certificate that gives some validation to a business, or you say the CA has to sign a balance sheet and the CA is registered and that there's a license which can be taken away. Similarly, there has to be call it a therapist or call it a mindset coach or whatever, because there's a human that needs guidance on a business. And the second is a business coach. And a specific business coach who's doing only that business. So for example, if you're selling scooters, two-wheelers, then there should be a coach who's helped two-wheeler companies succeed. That guy, his license number and everything should be put in. And at the end of the year, he should be submitting a thing to the government. What did he do to these people? Just like a teacher in a Harvard or a Princeton or a nice school in India is asked, my school got an 88% result or 92% result. My teacher will get a thing. If my school, say 50% students fail, my teachers will be called. But in entrepreneurship, teachers are not given, then they're not asked. And human beings are breaking and shattering more with comparison gram, which I call Instagram is comparison gram. We look at that and we're like, oh shit, I should have done this. My Masi's son is doing better than me. My uncle is doing better than me. Oh, now my friends are doing better than me. And whole thing that makes you smaller and smaller and smaller. And therefore, then everybody is running towards the spiritual coach or whatever. And some people are getting therapy and they're getting help. But the therapist and the business coach, both of them have to work together to help this entrepreneur. In the absence of that, what is happening is, everybody is wanting to be a Shah Rukh Khan. Everybody is assumed that every day 5,000 people will come to Bombay. Out of 150,000 people a month and 1.5 million people a year, 2 people will become Shah Rukh Khan. And everybody's like, let's play this 2% game or 1% game. Because in entrepreneurship, my belief is, when I was in school, you were in school, everybody was shooting this podcast. I'm just assuming everybody went to school because they say that 97-98% people went to school. Now, we were foolish, we were naive, we didn't know what to do, we couldn't walk, we couldn't talk, we were scared. But we still finished 12 years, learned 8-10 subjects, learned 4-5 languages, learned maths, learned accounting, drama, theatre, how to be in groups, everything we learned. How? When we were such, naive kids. Because school had 3 things: structure, discipline, and community. So in the morning, if I didn't feel like going to school, I had no option. 6:30, the bus would come. There was a discipline. If I got overwhelmed, what should I do? There was a timetable. Today there's maths, then there's Hindi, then there's social studies, then there's games. So there was a structure. And then if I forgot something I didn't know, I had my peer group, I had my teachers, tutors, and I had my principal, evening tuitions after work. So my community. So structure, discipline, and community. And 97% of kids who have no idea what to do in life, because of this institution called school, which gave structure, discipline, and community, we all went through school. Now came college, where we all got this thing called freedom, where you can do what you want. And that's when structure, discipline, and community went down. And so maybe 50-60% people are completing college. Then comes entrepreneurship, where there is no structure, no discipline, no community. Most people are leaving their jobs because they don't like the boss, because the boss demands, apart from being toxic people, I'm not talking about them, but there's a discipline, there's structure, we escape that, come into entrepreneurship, and we lose our discipline, structure, and community, and therefore only 3% startups are successful.
Correct.
So it is a human problem first, before investing money in a company. And I've invested money in multiple agencies and multiple things in the past, small seed fund and, helping. And most of the time when I see an entrepreneur with a stomach out, or, eyes puffy, and I know he's drinking or smoking or whatever, I'm not judging against that. I've done all those things in my, in my days. But I'm having a conversation with him. What is making you drink? What is their anxiety? What are those things? Because unless I know the human and his habits, my money is going to go down the drain in 2 minutes. So I think today's investors who are investing money, they have to invest and guide. They say, okay, we'll give you a mentor to help you and get you contacts, and you run 20 hours a day. But for those 20 hours, give him a yoga coach. Make sure he
Yeah.
does yoga. Give him a therapist. Give him a place to cry every day, because that's so normal today. It's like going to a place, bathroom you're going, तो रोना भी जरूरी है. जब तक वो सारी चीजें नहीं मिलेंगी ना, तब तक D2C हो या business B2 हो, everybody is going to flop and crash.
Imagine a co-working space which has a separate room called crying room, just like praying room.
Exactly. In fact, how I visualize it, I'm sitting on a desk and I'm doing something, and I have a manager. It's like almost like my angel when I talk to him, coming and saying, "Hey, Avi, I know you're feeling a little low. Relax. No, but I have so many emails to give. One second. So why can't there be a mother and a father kind of a person in every business for all the entrepreneurs and their teams? It's going to become mainstay someday.
Correct.
Because we're crashing and burning as human beings. And nahi handle ho raha. I don't think it's a market problem. Skill is one part of it, but पीछे का human ही solve नहीं है. That's my take on it.
It's a good take, Avi. I also have some perspectives on that, which we will talk about it in the Bitcoin section, because I feel that there is a non-level playing field. It's not a level playing field between a enterprise business, publicly listed company, and a small business. And one of the reasons I feel that it's not a level playing field is because small business entrepreneurs do not have access to cheap capital the way that large enterprises have. And if you can take, like, let's say 5 crore loan at a 5% or 6% interest rate, which is not possible for a small business entrepreneur, then you are going to not have a competitive advantage against a large enterprise, which is possibly having access to that kind of capital, whether it is from private lending, venture capital, or is it from public markets. And it's insanely difficult to go public and try to raise funds for a small startup, which we will kind of bounce back on when we talk about the monetary system itself, which is Bitcoin, and how the new system promises to kind of create a level playing field. But again, now, yes, these challenges are there. And if somebody wants to today in this economy, let's assume that they have a good coach, yoga coach, and they are trying to work on themselves. They have a good family support system and everything is in place. What should they do? Like, instead of, like, a lot of people have glorified or kind of made it sexy to start like a consumer startup, go on Shark Tank, or build an app for the App Store. But most of those startups fail. It's not very predictable. You are like trying to become, like, let's say, a cricket player in the Indian cricket team. You can do it, like nothing wrong, and people who are pursuing, but your chances of winning are extremely less.
Of course.
And most of the people are not ready to take that level of risk where they invest 10, 20 years of their life into something and still have a 99% chance that it will not work out. So why agency, why B2B, why enterprise?
So anything in life, sports, business, girlfriend, if she say yes or no, whatever, everything is a probability game. And it's a good thing to look at numbers to understand how probability works. And so you can have a good, fair chance of making a bet, your lifetime that you're putting. We have 3 things: TME, time, money, and energy. When you're young, you feel you have more energy and you just keep dispersing energy doing 10 things. Where do we put energy? We put energy in 3 things. All of us want naam, kaam, and dam. Right? And especially when we are young, we say, mera naam ho jaye. I was the first one to blow my trumpet and tell people I'm here, and I'll be always crazy and hungry for attention. Even now, I love attention. But what I've started realizing is, as I'm 48, I'm going towards 50, I'm realizing, pehle kaam, be very good at your work, then money, and then the name. You can promote yourself and go on podcasts or whatever, or people will come to you automatically, or do what you want. But first get the money in, the work in, the money in. So kaam, dam, and then naam. Now, with that philosophy, first we spoke that family is there, yoga, all of that is happening. She's supported as a human being. Then you have this understanding that this is the series I'm going to follow, because there's a cause and effect to everything. If you follow kaam, dam, and naam, uska ek alag effect hoga. If you follow naam, dam, and kaam, uska alag effect hoga. If you follow what I'm saying now, which is my new realization, pehle kaam, uska alag effect hoga. Assuming that you're going the calm route and you come to the agency world. Agency world is one thing which is, imagine how I started the agency was, I was very fascinated. I did not have the education and the degree to get into PwC, Deloitte, and all those companies, and that used to irritate me. Whenever I met these consultants, I used to feel, seriously, you're going to tell me that you're more educated and I can't do it? And they did have amazing, sexy numbers to talk about in meetings, and I never used to have. So that was one of the reasons that triggered me to say that I also want to take these numbers to my clients. So that was one. And then I realized that when you start an agency, most people in India, it's just crazy how many people I meet on an everyday basis who are selling SEO, PPC, social media, 10 keywords, 20 keywords, महंगा है, अच्छा 5 keyword कर दो. Still, whereas you have to take the PwC Deloitte model where they're never asking you PPC whatever. They're taking the first 4 or 5 meetings to understand your business. And then they're trying to go and understand what your competitors are doing. Then they're coming back with a business plan which can make you money. And then they will come and say, I think to make this money, we need to create this kind of a campaign. So today's digital agency, if they go and start talking to their customers and understanding the 3x3x3 proposal system which I talk about, which is in the proposal, you tell a client what are the 3 things that their competitors are doing. The best way to trigger a busy client, he's like, what the hell? He'll forget everything, he'll get your attention. What are the 3 things that they're doing that are going to burn them to the ground in the next 3 years? And then what are the 3 things that you can do for them in the next 3 years or 3 months, depending on the contract that you're sending to them? This, I guarantee it, I've done it 1 million times. This wakes up a person to possibilities, and then they will ask how. Once he's asking how, then it's just pulling the bait in, and the fish is yours. We go selling features, whereas we have to not even sell solutions. We just have to paint the market picture where they are in that market, and the possibility to make money and the probability to lose money. That's all. These 4 things. And then they will automatically ask how you do it. And then you tell them that this is how I'll do it. Then they'll say, what are the tools required? If they ask, then you say, I'm going to do SEO, PPC, whatever. Because in my head, I see it as you sell nails and a hammer, just certain charge for it. 10 kilos of nails, 20 kilos of nails. Then the carpenter you hire. He comes with the nails and hammer. So you pay him a certain price to do a dihadi everyday job. And then you hire an architect who'll say, okay, you want a podcast studio, 10 people coming in, sitting, whatever. He'll charge you a certain price. He'll get the carpenter will get the nails.
Correct.
So be the architect instead of selling the nails and the things. So there's a lot of money to be made if we just stop focusing on the fact that I only know SEO, I only know PPC, I know how to develop a website. How should I start an agency? Forget this. This ship has sailed. It's happening for 3,000 rupees a month. Nobody cares about this. Become the architect agency, which is telling people what I can do for you. What is the outcome I can produce for you? And now the second question people say in an agency world is, I don't know how to sell more. If you don't know how to sell more, see what other agencies are doing how to sell more. Or in many cases, if you know how to talk well and explain well, get the contract, get somebody else to do it. And don't get into a niche where products are not going to be sold. Because when it's only creative and it's only branding, then you're as good as your creative designer. Correct. The day he leaves for some other agency, you're done. So then you're like, I have no leverage. I have had clients touch wood for the last 10, 12, 15 years, not because I've not made mistakes. I've made every single mistake in the book. But as long as you're continuing to deliver revenue for these hotels, they're still calling you and, they still don't want to break off ties with you because the revenues are coming in. So I think that is why my vote for the agency model. Awesome. No investment, just understand how the 3x3x3 works.
Yeah. The way I look at it is that when you look at all the ways that you could make money, the balance between how much effort are you putting and how much capital you have is what determines at what path you will take.
Right.
So let's say somebody wants to make 2 lakh a month in income and take home income. If he wants to do nothing, he could buy real estate property for, let's say, 4 crores worth.
Sure.
He has 4 flats, 3 BHK flats. Each flat gives a rent of 50,000. He makes 2 lakhs a month.
Right.
So now that does not mean that he can do nothing. Of course, the passivity of the passive income is high.
Right.
You still have some activity, like
100%.
you have to find a tenant, sign a lease agreement, and if something breaks, you have to fix it. There's some activity, but not so much that you have to keep working.
Sure.
So let's say you have to make 2 lakh a month, but you don't have any capital at all. Then you have to also have a little bit of leverage in terms of your knowledge. But you can still manage without capital, go get a job for 24 lakh
Yeah.
CTC or 30
100%.
lakh CTC
Yeah.
and really work hard. But you have to work hard a lot in the sense
Yeah.
that it has to be like probably something like 60 to 70 hour work weeks.
Sure.
And you have to just like, be very focused. Now, you don't need to jump between these two extremes. You can choose something where you have to work for maybe 4 hours a day productively as an entrepreneur, but you also have some capital
Sure.
with which you can, set up a company, hire some people, and have a little bit of cash cushion for operational expenses. And when you do something like that, then that is, I think, the sweet spot between being an employee versus completely having capital where you can
100%.
enjoy passive income.
See, that's where you need a coach. Like
Yes.
who you need a coach, and you need to pay the coach at least for 1 or 2 years. Now I understand people are like, what if I get the wrong coach? Firstly, I believe that you should have a micro niche coach, somebody who's done exactly what you want. And secondly, you will make a few mistakes before you find the right girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever in life. So why are people crying? I paid a coach money and it didn't work out, so I'm not going to do. I always say that Sadhguru is such a revered guru. Tomorrow, if Sadhguru stops doing yoga, the whole world will stop doing yoga. No, you've learned from him. Now you continue.
Yeah.
So people put people on a pedestal in their head and then they bring them down. But that's what that poster says. Suno sabki, karo apni. Don't blame anybody. So everybody needs a coach. Like what you said was amazing. That this advice on its own should be 1 lakh an hour. To say, tell me what your resources are. This should be the path. Now, every month before you take one step, you're going to get anxiety. So call me and I'll help you go to the next level.
Yes.
So that's why coaching is needed.
Yeah.
So I genuinely, like Guru Dronacharya was one of my favorite characters in the Mahabharata because he coached both sides initially. And all of them were superstars today. Those are the rock stars or superstars we had before Spider-Man and everybody came. And they had one guru.
Yes.
And so they could not do without a guru after having such magical feats. And today we feel that we come from a small town and we are like, oh, coaching mein discount milega. It's ridiculous.
Yes. Yes. The entire market has been commoditized.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I genuinely feel that if they say कि हाँ discount मिलेगा ना, you say okay ठीक है मेरे को यही पूछना था मैं आपके साथ नहीं काम करूँगा. Strike it off. Go to the next one.
Yes. The best coaches don't give discounts.
Yeah.
So you can find out whether the coach is best or
100%.
not by finding out whether they are giving
100%.
discounts or not.
100%.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, we need a coach. We need to focus on agency business. We need to generate cash flow. But obviously, especially in a service-based business, you can't keep going on reinvesting all the cash flow back into the business, and it's not possible also, right? If you have 3 clients and you are making, let's say, 10 lakh revenue a month with a micro agency, and you make like a profit margin of, let's say, 3 lakhs. There is nothing for you to invest that 3 lakh back in unless it's a consumer startup.
Sure.
And you need to figure out how are you going to go and store that capital in a safe way, because you don't want to keep working forever. At some point, you would like to take some time off. You need good amount of nest egg, which helps you maybe relax in the sense because you are creating value for other people.
Yeah, like Dan Lok says, FU money.
FU money,
Yeah.
yes. So first, let's talk about real estate. Real estate has worked as a great store of value for you, not just you, but your family for a very long time. So do you invest in stocks, Avi?
I do, yeah.
But percentage might be less compared to your real estate portfolio.
Mutual fund, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Real estate, because see, since I started the agency, my dad always got me into the habit since childhood. My dad never brought money home. He always made us feel we have less than what we had. And if we had, because some percentage was always going to some EMI or something or the other. So I and my wife, we imbibed that every time I have even a little bit spare money, like for example, when I was making 3-4 lakh rupees profit in an agency, immediately I had a 1 lakh rupee EMI for a 2 crore apartment at that time. And so that money was never mine. Now, over a period of time, I have, all those EMIs which are going for different properties that I have, I don't even look at that. That is an expense. We have to go above that and get more deals.
Yes.
Otherwise, we would say, oh, there's so much cushion. And sometimes my team argues that this money is going towards your personal investment. And so this is not really operational expense. I'm like, this is operational expense. Beyond this, you have to think. Don't even look at this.
Yes.
Because if this is not happening, I'm not interested in running the agency.
It's an operational expense because you as a CEO has to operate.
Exactly. Exactly. So that is my motivation. Where is my incentive and motivation? It's coming from the fact that I'm building all this. I'm running around 20,000 flights a year and all of that is because, okay, my assets are being paid off every month. So that is my this thing. So I've always kept that EMI pressure on myself and my team. Any new member who comes, he gets a PNL, he said, okay, this is also part of it. So they get a percentage of shares for everything in the profit of the company, but this part has to be there. And dekhte hi dekhte pata bhi nahi lagta, one day you're like, oh, my 48th birthday, my hair is white, oh, I've got so many properties. So time goes, you're just having fun. For an untrained youngster, you should not have money in your hand anyways.
Yeah, that's what keeps pushing you to
mehenga
work
wala
hard.
iPhone, and I've never bought a 1,60,000 iPhone, in my life because of multiple reasons. I'm not, but people in my office say, sir, I want to show you a phone, and I'm like, oh shit. And I know he's showing me the phone because he's like, if I see it myself, I'll get upset with him. So definitely real estate has worked for me in that this thing, and mutual funds, because a lot of my friends are wealth managers, so they've told me that you should. They explained to me, and I liked it. They said invest in companies that you really like. Like I love Facebook for the capacity to be able to sit at home and reach out to a target customer avatar in any part of the world. He's going to see my ad. I just love the magic of that. So I invested in Facebook. They went up almost 600% after COVID. So I've invested in mutual funds, the companies that hold the stocks that I like. Crypto, I know that you've been a proponent of crypto for such a long time. I've always been worried. Is it safe? Is it legal? Should I do it? How should I do it? What are these wallets? So fear of the unknown has kept me away.
Yes. So taking the conversation there, so I believe you have not invested in Bitcoin yet.
No.
And
Yet.
And I would like to separate Bitcoin and crypto.
Sure.
Because a lot of people put Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and all the cryptocurrency assets is how they call it into the same bucket, that it is crypto. But the way I look at Bitcoin being different from all the other type of online cryptocurrencies is that Bitcoin is like digital gold. And have you invested in gold, or do you hold a gold portfolio?
No.
Okay. So let me try to arrive at trying to convince you to take Bitcoin seriously by asking you, let's say you have made a 1 lakh profit this month and you have 1 lakh in cash. Why can't you just hold that 1 lakh for 10 years?
I can.
You can, but you won't. You will invest it somewhere.
Oh yeah. Don't hold it on the side.
You won't hold it. You won't just hold that 1 lakh.
100%.
You generally are not cash rich. You are always invested, right? And the reason for that is that the cash loses purchasing power.
Exactly.
And that loses purchasing power because of inflation.
Right.
And we have understood inflation as a part of economy. That's how it is. But I want to tell you that based on my research and understanding of how money has evolved, it has always not been the case. And for 5,000 years, humans use gold as money and an asset, right? It's money, currency, and an asset. And it might look like money and currency are the same, but I will tell you how they are different.
Sure.
And what gold has given and why people chose gold is that, see, even today, they say that gold has utility value, but 90% of the gold is just sitting in vaults, in gold bars, bullions, and everything. And for 5,000 years, the reason why gold evolved as money is because, let's assume that there is an island. There are 1,000 people in an island. And have you seen Castaway movie? Tom Hanks?
100%.
So this person, Wilson, yeah. So Tom Hanks is in this island all by himself. And you know how life is harsh when you are alone.
Yeah.
Forget about the emotional companionship part. Life is still hard because he took 4 years, Tom Hanks, to figure out how to catch fish efficiently. Because he had to take care of his dental health himself and catch fish himself, maybe build a hut himself. It takes a long learning curve for him to become good at something, and then life can be extremely harsh in such conditions. There is no luxury. But let's say you have 1,000 people in an island and you divide the responsibilities 100 each. So 100 people are fishermen, 100 people are building huts, 100 people are taking care of others' health, 100 people are doing agriculture and maybe growing some fruits and stuff. So now, because 100 people are just focused on catching fish and nothing else, they are getting better at it. They are becoming more productive.
Right.
They can build a fishing boat. They can build a fishing net.
Micro niche.
Niche. They are niching down,
Right.
right? And when they niche down, the abundance of the island increases because the fisherman, instead of catching fish for himself, for his own family, he is able to be productive enough that he has a surplus. And now this surplus can be given to other people. So let's say a fisherman who has caught, let's say, 10 fishes, he just needs 2. Now he can't store the remaining 8 fishes for 2 months, right? Okay, 2 months ke baad I will just chill for like a week. I will take a vacation. Now, because the fish is not a form of currency, he has to barter it with somebody else, and somebody else might also have some goods which is not
Again,
durable,
not currency,
right? It's not durable and it's perishable.
Right.
So now that's when, so let's say these island folks figured out that let's have shells as currency, because these type of specific shells are limited in number, and they go ahead and just choose that shells. So let's say, for example, for the simplicity of mathematics, you can say that there are 1,000 shells in the island, and let's say the fish is selling for a shell. So the fisherman sells a fish, he gets a shell back. Now that shell does not need intrinsic value, does not have any utility value. It's just a mutual agreement between all the participants in the island that this is of value. And tomorrow you can redeem this value for the excess service that you have provided for other folks in the island.
Okay.
We owe you services and products in return, which is represented by you holding that shell.
Okay.
Right? Now imagine if somebody just finds 100 shells in a cave, and he will be like, oh, I found wealth, I found a treasure. But has he really found a treasure? Has he worked for that 100 shells? No. And if the total amount of shells in the island becomes 1,100 from 1,000, then what this person who has found 100 shells without working hard for it and earning it, basically what he has done is that steal 10% of everyone's energy and everyone's hard work. And that is where the shell inflation is happening. Right? So people tried different forms of currencies throughout history. In Africa, they used glass beads as currency. And then Europeans came in and manufactured glass beads, which was a difficult process to do, manual labor. But Europeans used factory-built glass beads, and those glass beads were actually called slave beads, because that's how they sucked out the energy of the Africans so much, impoverished them so much that they had to sell themselves as slaves to kind of help their family or whatever, right? Eventually, the world settled in gold because they found out that gold is scarce, and for anything to be money and also a currency, it has to be scarce, because the scarce item represents energy of people to be used as money, right? The shell was basically somebody's hard work and effort and energy, right? So gold became currency for 5,000 years. And
do you work for Elon Musk?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Gold.
But very nice. I like the way you explain it.
Yeah, because I have been trying to explain this Bitcoin thing to thousands of folks, across thousands of conversations, and I optimized my path to trying to
very nice.
Make a
I'm
point,
enjoying this story. Yeah.
Awesome. So gold eventually kind of became money. Yes, the cattle was used as money. People used rice as money at some point. But again, there is a difficulty of bartering. There is a difficulty of acceptability across trade routes and everything. And gold eventually became money because, first of all, gold is limited. The amount of gold that can be mined out from earth has not been more than 1 to 2% a year for like centuries now. And that's how much people have been able to extract gold. So it's limited. So that's the first property of money. But it's also divisible, and it's verifiable, and most importantly, it's durable.
Right.
And it's also fungible. A piece of real estate or an artwork is not fungible in the sense my artwork and your artwork cannot be exchanged. But yes, modern currencies do have fungibility, which means my 100 and your 100 is the same.
Right.
My 1 gram gold coin and your 1 gram gold coin will be the same.
Right.
So until 1930s, every dollar was backed by gold. And when US dollar was issued, it got credibility for the currency notes, and people slowly moved on from transacting gold coins, which is heavy and bulky and risky to carry around, and they started transacting in paper notes, because the paper notes were literally representation of the gold in the vault. That's what gave value to these paper notes, right? But in 1935, I think, 1935 or 36, the US government declared that private gold ownership is illegal. Give the gold back, we will give you the dollars. It was around $19 to $20 an ounce. And after all the gold was seized from common public, it went up to $35 an ounce, which means that the US dollar, which was backed by gold, has now diluted, and more currency units has been created for the same gold. And that is why it went from like $20 to $35 immediately. And in 1971, US stopped redeemability of gold for dollars for international organizations, countries as well. That you cannot go to US and give the dollar and get back the gold. And finally, the dollar became backed by nothing, and it became backed by debt and the promise to repay the debt. Right. And I will give you like a very simple example of how debt can create new money and how it can create inflation. So let's say I go and deposit 10 lakhs in a bank. 10 lakhs is my savings. And you want to get a car loan. Let's say you are buying a car for 9 lakhs. You go get a loan from that bank. The bank would say, okay, 10% cash reserve ratio, 90% I can loan it out. And you take that 9 lakh loan, and let's say the bank from which you took the loan and the bank in which the dealer has the account are two different banks. That bank will get a deposit of 9 lakhs. Now that bank can also say, I can keep 10% of it and lend out 90% of it. So 8.1 lakh is loaned out. And again, if you keep doing that with a 10% cash reserve ratio, your 10 lakh becomes 1 crore of circulating money in the economy. Right? Because of lending.
Sure.
And it remains 1 crore as a bubble as long as everybody is in debt. But once everybody starts repaying their debt, it starts shrinking again. Mm-hmm. And that is what we call recession.
Right.
And when money is not backed by gold or any hard asset and it's only debt, like, I don't want to go too deep into how central banking works today. But as of today, money can be created out of thin air, which is cheap credit, which is what is causing inflation. Right? So,
like they did every time just after
so in 2008 we had this great financial crisis, which was over leveraged systems, and the end effect of this inflationary monetary system and debt system is that if you go to the bank and if you want to take a loan, the bank will say that give me some collateral, that if you don't repay the loan, I sell the collateral in the market and I encash it. So you can take gold loan, you can take loan against gold, you can take loan against property, you can take loan against your car, you can take loan against your house, refinance it if you want.
Even your working capital money, your books,
yes.
Loan is available.
Yes. Yeah. Now, this loan money which you take is not necessarily coming from people's savings. If it had to come from people's savings, the cost of interest rate borrowing will be very high, right? It is coming from debt, which is newly minted money. And I will give you like another simple example to understand how debt creates inflation. So same island, 1,000 people. Let's say each person has $1. And the bank says, or the government says that now you go deposit all this $1 in a bank. The bank has $1,000. Now there is a huge corporation who is coming. And he is like, okay, I want to take a loan to build a factory. So the bank says, okay, 10% cash reserve. I will give you $900 loan. Now imagine a basket of goods and services in the island costs $1. Now the factory can possibly increase the productivity of the island through factory and some kind of innovation. But when this corporate who had the power to take that $900 loan started spending that money out into the economy, people got paid.
Yeah.
Let's say anybody who got paid $1 is assuming that he can buy $1 worth of goods and services. But by the time that entire $900 is spent into the economy, the total amount of money circulation in the economy is not $1,000 anymore, but $1,900 because this debt money has come out. But the goods and services has not doubled yet. So the basket of goods and services which used to cost $1 will now cost $1.9. And that is what we call inflation. And inflation is created through this debt. Now, who is the biggest benefactor in this entire process is the person who took that cheap credit. Right? Because while he was paying it out, people thought that this is of high value, but while it finished paying out, the value reduced in terms of purchasing power.
And so that is, so that is what happened in the crisis when they bought these debts.
Yes.
Thinking that they have value. And the debt itself which were bought did
not have any value. Okay. That was collateralized debt obligations and everything.
Right.
But at the same time, when debt is paid back, the economy shrinks. The total amount of capital money supply shrinks. But when debt is defaulted, also the money supply shrinks. Right. So if a bank is giving you loan for let's say 1 crore property, they are just asking you to put 20 lakh down. They are giving you an 80 lakh loan, and it is based on the assumption that the property value will not go below 80 lakhs. But if you take a loan and if you are unqualified, and a lot of such people take loan, because the money is so cheap coming from credit, a lot of houses are being bought. The house values has kind of bubbled up. And then we had, I think, situations where 95% the bank will lend you and only 5% was down payment. I think in some cases it even went to 1%, 2%, right? So now when people can't repay this debt and they start defaulting on the debt, and the bank is saying that, okay, I have to put this property back into the market
They don't
to
get more than
liquidate.
65%.
And then the supply of houses has gone up, which reduces the price, and it gets reduced more than the collateral value. That's when the bank is supposed to fail or at risk of failing. But if banks failed, then let's say the insurance AIG failed, then all the flights will stop flying because all the flights are insured by AIG. So then the government steps in, says that, okay, we cannot let this happen. We have to bail them out. So the government themselves go into debt, and this is where the tricky part comes. The government can sell debt, but the government cannot take loan against a real world asset, right? You take loan against gold, you take loan against property, but the government sells treasury bonds. I mean, there are corporate bonds as well, but it's just a promise. And the promise is the asset against which a liability is created.
Right.
So yes, you can sell your debt to retail, you can sell your debt to corporate, you can sell your debt to other countries' central banks who will purchase your bonds. But if none of them do, you can still force your own central bank to buy.
Right.
And the central bank puts that promissory note or the promise to repay that debt as the asset against which it creates a liability, which is newly minted money out of thin air, gives it to the government, and that's where the waterfall of capital starts from government and then to institutions, to publicly listed companies. Now, my biggest problem with this is that the people who are in the top 1%, top 10%, who hold any form of hard asset, which does not increase in supply, like gold, real estate, stocks, are protected to some extent against this newly created capital, which creates inflation, increased costs of goods and services. And you might have seen past 20 years how much cost of goods and services has increased.
Oh my God.
But we are protected. It affects the most when it comes to the last segment of the economy, right? You have the government, and you have institutions, and you have private institutions, and you have publicly listed companies, then you have venture capital startups, then you have small businesses, with small business owners having some form of assets to protect themselves against inflation. But I would say 80 to 90% of the population who live paycheck to paycheck, not able to accumulate assets because the cost of living is increasing so much. Now, everywhere, people who feel smart of investing in assets and having their wealth grow, I also feel it's an invisible extraction of wealth from the bottommost layer of the society, which includes your cooks, maids, construction workers, sanitary workers, whatever that might be, because they don't have any assets. Their cost of living only increases. Now, it's beyond the scope of this podcast to explain the technical architecture of Bitcoin, but this is the question that should make people curious to study Bitcoin more, because Bitcoin comes across as this digital commodity money which is literally trying to replace gold. But one of the problems with gold is I cannot send 1 kg of gold from India to you where you are in Canada. Right?
Portability nahi hai.
Portability nahi hai. And you have to store the gold somewhere, and then you need ETFs or some form of digital gold. But then they say that Fort Knox, whatever it claims, there is no gold.
Oh my,
recently you have started saying in news. They say that the gold has been rehypothecated, like, lent against multiple times. So when you look at the total amount of price that is representing the gold and the actual gold that is there is a huge mismatch.
My God.
So you can't always go ahead and buy gold bars and put it in your locker and then try to safeguard it and everything, right? So how Bitcoin is digital gold, how the supply of Bitcoin cannot be increased, the technical architecture of it is very beautiful. If I have to give an analogy so now you understand that you need a currency like gold, which is limited in supply. And if you have a currency like gold, which is limited in supply, imagine somebody 1,000 years back, he earned, let's say, 2 grams of gold coin for a day's worth of labor.
Here, just on this point.
Yeah, sure.
So that means that in places like Koramangala or some places in Delhi, where the limited supply and the property is high, that's a good investment.
It's a very good investment, yes. But I'm not saying that we are trying to compete this as an investment, but we are looking at the system and the flaws of the system.
No, but because you're saying, are we basing this on scarcity?
We are basing it on scarcity. Okay. Yes. If we have a store of value, it has to be scarce.
Right.
But it has to be portable, durable, verifiable,
all of that,
and portable as well. Sure. Right. And it also has to have a history, which is what Bitcoin does not have yet, because it's only 16 years old. But when you look at, let's say somebody earning in gold 1,000 years back, let's say he earned 2 grams of gold in a day for a day's worth of labor, and he spent 1 gold coin or 1 gram of gold. He does not need to convert this remaining gram of gold immediately into stocks, real estate, or some kind of investment. because the amount of gold itself is limited.
Yeah.
Right. So when the currency is limited, it also acts like an asset at the same time, where the purchasing power of that currency keeps increasing over a period of time.
Right.
Because gold failed, now Bitcoin is coming across as digital gold. And they say that mining Bitcoin is as difficult as mining gold, now more difficult. And if you earn in Bitcoin, let's say, at some point in time in the future, 50 years later, you don't need to convert that Bitcoin into other assets because the purchase power of that Bitcoin itself is going up. So imagine, so one Bitcoin is 100 million Satoshis. And imagine there is a cab driver, or let's say because of AI, there are no cab drivers exist. Let's say there is a chef who is making gourmet dishes for me. I don't want the robot to make me dishes.
I was just in America and I saw a robot chef by Tesla.
Okay, so chef is also gone. And he is earning, let's say, 10,000 Satoshis in a month. Now he can spend 5,000 Satoshis and save 5,000 Satoshis. And the purchasing power of this 5,000 Satoshis will keep going up. Which means that he does not need to convert this money into another form of assets to protect its purchasing power. The money itself is doing its job of protecting the purchasing power. Just like I gave an example that if you earn 1 lakh, and if that 1 lakh buys you more and more over a period of time, where things are getting cheaper, then you will just keep that 1 lakh as 1 lakh, right? You might not need to put it on FD, gold, stocks, real estate or whatever.
But my point is that when it comes to mutual funds or real estate, I have not gone into so many details. On this. I have just seen precedents, and I also got on that wagon. Probability and precedents, and I started doing. Same with mutual fund. I did not go into the details, although there's a friend of mine who's very passionate about mutual funds, like you're about crypto, and he tried to explain. I found 5% logic in what this is making sense, and I saw precedents and I did it. Crypto is not showing me precedents, like 20 of my friends.
Definitely not precedents, but that is the opportunity.
Sure.
If you are waiting until it shows a precedent, your one Bitcoin is already at $1 million or $10 million.
When you started talking about it, it was cheap.
So that way, the decentralized protocol of Bitcoin is a protocol for value itself. And I'm not saying that I am 100% sure that it will become the protocol of value, but I expect it to, and I keep trying to find reasons why it might not, and I am unable to find solid reasons, is the way I do my research process. And you can think of it this way: for everything we have a standard value. For time, the standard value is seconds. For weight, the standard value is grams. But even when you have two standard values for weight, which is kilograms and pounds, it does create a lot of confusion. Kilometers and miles. Imagine for time, if you had 40 seconds in France and 80 seconds in Australia, the amount of confusion it will create. But we do live in that confusion where whenever we travel internationally, we have to do a currency exchange. And the value keeps differing from one place to the other, right? Imagine what if there is a standard value for value itself. I mean standard measurement of, unit of measurement for value itself. And imagine a currency that is globally accepted, where everybody just calculates the value of things in Bitcoin terms. And I believe that the percentage of chances
to standardize lots of things.
To get to that level where, like imagine I was in Vietnam, and as soon as you land, wherever you go for a vacation, you convert all the dollars that you carried into a local currency to spend there. But my friend who was in Vietnam, who I went to meet, said that don't convert all your dollars into Vietnamese currency. Some hotels accept dollars as currency, right? Now, why do they accept dollars as currency? Is because dollar is stronger, and $100 is 2.5 million Vietnamese dongs, while the airport is just giving me 2.4 million Vietnamese dongs, and Google is showing me 2.5 million. The hotel is also accepting 2.5 million because they like to hold some dollars.
Hold it,
And even though dollar is also inflationary and also dilutes in value over a period of time because more units of it is created, it still holds value a little bit more stronger than their local currency. So what Vietnamese dongs is to the dollars is now to Bitcoin itself. And because of its limited amount of units that are going to circulate, and that is enforced by a decentralized algorithm, just like chess rules, right? Nobody creates chess rules. It's just an agreed upon consensus. We are looking at laws, but not lawmakers. We are looking at rules, but not rulers. And the rules is something that we have commonly agreed upon. as a protocol for value, which is like a protocol for communication, which is the internet, right? The whole internet is built on top of TCP/IP protocol. So the protocol for value exchange and value storage, both, is what is the promise of Bitcoin. And the chances that it would become the world reserve currency where everybody transacts everything in Bitcoin and calculates the value of everything in Bitcoin, the chances of that might have been 1% back in 2012. It was something like, I would say, roughly 3% back in 2017, 5 to 6% back in 2020. But now you see like people were saying that what if Bitcoin is banned? Forget crypto. Crypto might be banned, might not be banned. I don't care. But what if Bitcoin is banned? Because the only truly scarce thing is Bitcoin. What if Bitcoin is banned by governments because it fundamentally goes against their principle of being in control of the currency issuance and the supply of currency? Is what people were saying, and that's why I missed out buying Bitcoin at $500 back in 2016 when I noticed it. And it has gone up 160x since then. And they say that Bitcoin is an ego test, not an intelligence test, because at some point you have to accept that you were wrong about Bitcoin and missed out buying it in low price. But it is still a great price considering where it is going. And you need to understand that it could still go ahead and keep expanding in value.
Ego, because people are saying, I didn't buy it now, so I won't buy it.
Yes. Okay. And I don't want to be falling behind people who bought it for cheaper.
Right.
Why would I buy Bitcoin for $80,000 when somebody else got to buy it for $1,000? It's an ego thing.
That's now you understand why I say that you're like a 20-year-old and a 50-year-old.
Yeah. I'm like totally excited, but I'm also thinking long term.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. You're excited, like this is the new thing, amazing, cool thing. Yes. But at the same time, you've thought through it with so many layers from 1800 to now. That's why Deepak Kanakraju, ladies and gentlemen, to you is two versions in one.
Yeah. So imagine if I had 2% of my portfolio in Bitcoin back in 2016, that would be 60% of my portfolio today. So not having 2% allocation to Bitcoin back in 2016 was the risk, not buying Bitcoin, right? Because if I had bought it, I would have lost 2%. So what? We lose that in stocks all the time. We lose that in some real estate deals. And right now, that's what I recommend people. I don't recommend them to go and just blindly buy something that they don't understand. And yes, it is true that you should not invest in something you don't understand.
Sure.
But people act like they cannot understand it ever. Sit and understand it. Invest the time to understand how money works. You hold a dollar or rupee in your hand, understand where it's coming from. And if you go deep down the rabbit hole, you will see that because of access to cheap capital, a lot of negative things are happening in the world. Like for example, a big corporation can take 1,000 crore loan and they can wipe out all the small stores in a particular area by having a superstore. Now, you are not playing in a level playing field because that small guy also does not have access to the same capital.
Yeah.
And that capital is newly minted capital, not capital coming from people's savings. But in a Bitcoin world or in a gold world, if you have to loan money to somebody, you can only loan it out from people's real savings. You cannot loan it out from thin air, which creates inflation, because the amount of gold will be the same, the amount of Bitcoin will be the same. So the way I look at it, Bitcoin is more like a philosophical thing and a moral thing. And yes, there are people who are still not understanding it.
So which is like the cheapest guide or YouTube channel or book? Or cheapest means in terms of easiest?
Easiest. So there is a book called The Bitcoin Standard. And
by Deepak Kanakraju?
No.
Okay.
by a guy called Saifuddin Amos. And if you look at the teachings of Quran and the moral principles of Islamism and Islamic money, they say that if you charge interest rate, it's usury, and you should not charge interest. Because in a limited supply currency system like gold, if you keep charging interest, you will end up hoarding a lot of wealth, and that's not the point. And if you look at Bitcoin's properties, it's actually halal money, according to Islamic tradition as well, which now a lot of people are understanding. And again, Bitcoin is not just a digital currency which exists in a system. It is backed by energy. And yes, obviously there are some conspiracy theories or arguments against Bitcoin that Bitcoin consumes a lot of electricity. But if you go deep into understanding that argument as well, it's busted.
Sure.
In the sense that every unit of Bitcoin that you have, every Satoshi you have is a unit of energy itself. And it's not easy to create. And to create Bitcoin, you need to run a mining process, and it consumes electricity, which means this currency is backed by energy. So what is Bitcoin backed by? It is backed by cryptographic energy, and it is backed by electricity. It is backed by trust that people have in the system. It's a protocol. And I believe personally, given enough time, This is my personal conviction. People might take a long time to reach this level of conviction. But my personal conviction is that there will come a time in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years or 20 years that everything is crashing and only Bitcoin is going up. And at that point, people will not have any option but to transfer to Bitcoin. It's like you can't carry a knife to a gunfight. You have to adopt a gun, right? So you have to adopt the economic weapon which you have, which is the power to store your value in a thermodynamically sound system which does not leak energy, right? Everything leaks energy in one way or the other. And the amount of time that you have to spend in understanding where you have to put your money is kind of taking time away from people focusing on their career. Like for example, let's say a doctor who makes 10 lakhs a month, he has to now put 20-30% of his time in understanding where to save that money. And that is time taken away from him possibly becoming a better doctor or serving more patients.
Right.
So the current economic system makes us gamblers. It continuously pushes us to think about where to put that money. So can we have just one, that economic battery, without having to go for diversification? That is a promise. We are not there yet.
Sure.
We might get there. If we are already there, you will be already having 100% of your net worth in Bitcoin, right? Obviously, we are not there. And that is why I tell people, buy 1,000 rupees worth or buy 5,000 rupees worth. Because if you don't buy, see, you did not buy in 2016. Did you realize that it has gone 160x?
I have realized.
You have realized, but now because I said so, you have realized, but it's not in your conscious memory.
No, it came in my conscious memory when I was coming to meet you because I knew Bitcoin.
Yes. But in case if you had put 1,000 rupees back in 2016 and it became 1.6 lakhs, it would consume so much of your mental energy that you can't not study it deeper because now you have skin in the game.
Right.
Little bit of skin in the game, which what I recommend people. I tell them, buy put 2,000 or put 5,000. If you lose that 5,000, I will give you that 5,000 back.
Right.
I will protect your downside and your upside is unlimited.
Right.
And that is how I have been trying to convince people to study it, not buy it, right? Because they have to have the conviction, because if they buy it without understanding what it is,
then it's not their
it will go 10x, then it will crash 50%, they will panic and they will sell and there is no point. Right?
Good one.
So that's the way I look at it, and I really, one of the things that makes me excited is Bitcoin, and I feel like Bitcoin is hope for a better future. And one of the reasons I am so excited about it is that I feel it's the only certainty in an uncertain world. It's the only certainty.
Wow. Whereas people who don't understand it see it completely differently.
They think of it as uncertain because they have not studied it. See, if you have a real estate property worth 1 crore and in 2 years it becomes 1.5 crores, what is your percentage ownership of the monetary network? Has it really gone up? You still cannot say. If the total amount of money supply has gone up by 60% and your real estate property has gone up by 50%, your percentage ownership in the monetary network, which represents value, might have still reduced because there is no 100% clarity on how fast it is expanding and there is no limit to how much it is expanding. Everything is getting inflated all the time. And in some countries like Turkey, you have got inflation which is 50% year on year. You have got hyperinflation in Argentina, Venezuela, and everybody says that no, it cannot happen in India, it cannot happen in US, it cannot happen in developed countries.
I just feel that human beings are not rational people. So they will not go to the rational route. So what we need to do is make 2-3 famous celebrities buy Bitcoin, and then everybody will buy Bitcoin. Which is
happening. There are billionaires who have put more than 50% of their net worth in Bitcoin. But unless you study it, you cannot handle the volatility.
Like, good point. But you have an answer for everything. There is, like all the big film stars in India promoting some Ludo or gambling, whatever. So they should all promote. If they promote Bitcoin, then they will. More people will buy.
But they have to first understand it, right? And it takes a lot of time to understand it.
I'm just saying that influencers can only promote because I've just seen around the world all those intelligent people I met, because I used to have this self-doubt in myself that hedge fund managers and I don't understand the mathematics of this, and I met them. They're real human beings like us, and a lot of them understand basics that they've been to school and all of that. After that, for the last 20 years, they've just been looking in trends and buying. They haven't even gone deep. So most people are not using their mind. So
it's insanely difficult to understand Bitcoin, and it takes a lot of time, which I got the opportunity in the past 2 years, where the amount of time that I had to invest in my work started becoming relatively low.
Yeah.
And it gave me plenty of free time, like several hours.
So
in
you
a
were
day to
always
study
the
Bitcoin.
proponent of deep work, right?
Yes,
I remember.
yes.
I remember. So yeah.
And I think that is a work that everybody has to do. Otherwise, they are going to eventually, in case what Bitcoiners say becomes true, and in case we become a Bitcoin standard world economy where everything is transacted in Bitcoin, you will not be able to buy Bitcoin. You will only be able to earn Bitcoin.
You know, the image I'm getting in my head right now is that you, me, Sid, all of the, everybody will come and you will be the Rancho of three idiots and we'll look for you with, you said this is going to come and this happened, and then you'll be in Leh and Ladakh and you said, see, I told you.
Yeah.
Because how deep you're going into,
Yes.
if I was to just give up everything and start again, I would, my biggest focus right now is on, I would invest technology, whatever. My biggest passion right now is sleep.
Sleep. Okay.
So I just invested a lot of money, and I told my sister, she's like my first daughter. She's 10 years younger to me. So I keep telling her this is happening, that's happening. I'm not sleeping that well. So she said, so we got these bed sheets, pillow. I like to look at water, but I also like to look at the 1970s homes. It's just my thing. So she made a list of things that I like to do, and we put those pictures around frames in my. So I get up in the morning, my room. That's about, I think, 3 to 5 lakh rupees we invested, and my room, I sleep like a child.
Yeah.
And now I've just ordered this sleep mattress.
Yeah. That's a great investment. Like self-care is obviously the most investment, because one thing that is scarcer than Bitcoin is our time in this world.
Exactly.
Right.
So the thing is, I'm like, I remember my dad told me many years ago, he used to run a factory and there was a strike in the factory and it was going down by the day and he was losing money. So he said, I used to stay in the factory, never come home, like for a months at a time. He said his coach at that time, his mentor, whoever, he told him, and he used to sleep with the AC on. And it was a big message being sent that there's no money in the factory, the workers are working overtime, and the boss is sleeping with the AC on. And my dad asked his coach, mentor, that, am I doing the right thing? He said, you're the most important asset right now, your energy. If something happens to you, it finishes. So you take care of yourself wherever you are.
Yeah. I look at it like your body is the drone.
Yeah.
And you are the drone controller. So don't crash the drone.
Oh, nice one.
Right?
Nice,
and
I like that.
Obviously, I do strongly believe that our consciousness comes from a quantum field, which controls our body in this plane, because whatever we experience, that is not something that is being experienced from inside our brain. It is being experienced from a different dimension. And we exist in this physical reality, and sometimes we think this is all that exists.
Right.
And there is nothing beyond that. Which is also, something, one last point if I have to make about Bitcoin is that I call it spiritual money. Because yes, it is volatile, but the volatility does not bother me because I understand it very deeply. But it is also the safest store of energy for the economic value that you have provided for other people. And it's a singularity store of energy that you don't need to diversify. And I could become a minimalist. Every asset that I can possibly own out in the world apart from Bitcoin needs maintenance, but Bitcoin is mathematics and science. So I can put my energy into it, and then I can rest of the time meditate, and I can seek out spiritual goals, right? If you have a lot of money, and if you have real estate, stocks, and if you have gold, and if you have some business investment, startup, you can't just sleep peacefully, because this needs certain level of maintenance and activity to keep maintaining it for it to continue being stores of energy. But can we have a store of energy which is thermodynamically efficient and strong in such a way that it can just stay there, as good as putting money in a fixed deposit and forgetting about it, where the fixed deposit is the highest yielding return? Something like that is what I see Bitcoin as. And that's why my book, which is coming out, is called Spiritual Money.
Oh, what a beautiful name.
I'm writing a book about Bitcoin.
Okay.
And I think it has definitely changed me as a person. I'm not chasing egoistic things anymore, like getting an award or coming under this list or that list, or being connected or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen that change in you.
Yeah. And that is because I feel that from the human psyche, one of the reason why you feel like you have to catch up with the Joneses, or you have to be higher than others, or you have to find these markers.
Most tiring thing.
And you have to find these markers of high social status is because when humans evolved over thousands or millions of years, they evolved in tribes, and you did not have a store of value. So in a tribe, what ensures your survival is being the tribal leader or being the friends of the tribal leader. And within the tribe of, let's say, 300 people, and let's say there are 150 men, and if you are in the bottom 10% of the lowest category of, not category of men, but in lowest in terms of social status, which is defined by the dynamics of the tribe, you don't have any reproductive opportunity, and your survival is also under question because
So it's
the
in our
tribal
DNA.
leader could kill you.
So it's been
So
in
our DNA constantly says that chase status, because status means that you can survive. And people forget
Interesting.
that now we have a store of value. Bitcoin allows to you to become a nobody. This world forces to always become a somebody, which is always stressful.
Yeah.
Who am I? I'm this, I'm that, I'm Forbes 30 under 30, Fortune 40 under 40, or
yeah.
Fortune 500 company ka CEO हूँ मैं. Or the people join like Rotary, JCs, or whatever clubs, and they get this award, that award. It's always about recognition, ego. And where does it stop? And I have this car, that car. You buy cars for performance, boss. I have no problem with it.
I know.
Right?
Same here.
Just do it for performance, not to show off.
Yeah.
Right?
I know what you're saying.
You are doing things to constantly signal to other people that I am higher status than you, and that's a waste of money, waste of energy. And you are doing it in a day and age where you have safe stores of value.
Yeah.
And becoming a nobody in a world which forces you to become somebody is the
Amazing.
superpower.
It is 100%. I totally agree with that. That is so well said. You become such a good speaker, Deepak.
Thank you.
My God, like this was, it was like, where are you reading from? This was amazing. Like non-stop on that thing. It was like,
Thank you.
like,
I hope I have not, tried to make it too complex or chaotic.
No,
right?
You
are
told
able
stories
to-
and everything. I'm sure
Yeah.
people who are listening will also. I have to listen to it 2-3 times to understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can definitely do it offline, and we
Yeah.
should do a private mastermind
We should.
where you let me talk about Bitcoin for 5 hours, and then you will walk out to the room that this is a solution to everything. Like every problem in the world and every problem in the society, this is the solution.
So I was talking to Sid yesterday, and we were saying we haven't spoke,
Yeah.
caught up in a long
Yes.
time. So maybe we should.
We should. Mahabalipuram.
Mahabalipuram,
Done.
Zindabad.
Yeah, for sure, Ravi. It was a pleasure. I
Same
think
here.
we have had a conversation which has gone for more than 1 hour, and it
Oh,
don't
wow.
feel like that.
Awesome.
And super, thank you for rescheduling your flight and accommodating this.
No, not at all. Thank you for having
It was
me.
a
I had
highly
to
due
meet this.
catch up and a wonderful catch up.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Deepak.
Yes, thank
All
you,
the
Avi.
best. Khush raho bas.
Yes.